Good day, everybody. Good day. Thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you so much for well, thank you for hanging out with us. Yes, thank you so much for hanging out with me. And today is Monday. Today is today is Monday, and today will be a topic presentation. A topic presentation, and today we will be talking about John chapter 2. Who is Jesus Christ according to John? Who is Jesus Christ according to John? And we'll be looking into John chapter 2 right now. We need to unpack and we need to unpack the whole entire the book of John. We have to unpack the book of John so that we would be able to understand how is John presenting Jesus Christ. Because if you were to look into the book of John, you will see that there's very interesting things in the book of John. Like one of the things that we find in the book of John is the book of John is not really similar to the other three canonical gospels that we have. The book of John, it stands out by just a tiny bit. It's different. It's special. Why is it different? Why is it special? Well, I personally think because of what has happened on at the island of Patmos. So John throughout his life he preached Jesus Christ. He preached Jesus Christ very passionately, very boldly and confidently. And yes, he was threatened a lot. Yes, he was captured. Yes, he was striked as well. But that did not stop John from continuing to preach about who Jesus Christ is. And as a result of that, when the Roman Empire saw that they cannot really get rid of John, what they have done is they just exiled him to the island of Patmos. And it's at that island that Jesus Christ comes to John and reveals himself to him. And some of the things that Jesus Christ had said when he came to John, that he is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Basically, he is everlasting. And some other things that Jesus has revealed to John. And I personally think, as a result of that revelation that John has received on that island, he wrote the gospel of Jesus Christ according to John in such a way that he wrote it. It's different. Let me tell you. It's different than the gospel of Matthew, the gospel of Mark, the gospel of Luke. The gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, they focus primarily on Jesus's life, just his biography, his actions. Yes, we find a lot of teachings of Jesus Christ in those three gospels, but the gospel of John, we don't really find much actions of Jesus Christ. We find, I believe there's only 8 miracles in the gospel of John. That's it, compared to a lot more miracles that are recorded in the other gospels. But what John is focusing on conversations. He's focusing on specifically on the conversations where Jesus Christ was revealing his divinity. Whenever the Jews would ask him, who is he? And Jesus Christ would actually reveal his divinity. We find many times, I think three times in John we find, or maybe even 4 times we find in John, where the Jews would pick up stones or wanted to capture Jesus to arrest him, specifically because he was claiming that he is the Son of God. Only for that reason. That's it. There was no other reason to stone him or to arrest him and put him on trial, but specifically for that one reason alone. And John is actually focusing on such things. He's focusing on a Jewish understanding of Jesus Christ. Jewish understanding of Jesus Christ. How Jews saw Jesus Christ. Those that believed, how they saw it, and how the enemies of Jesus Christ also saw him. That's what John is focusing on. He, his number one mission is to reveal Jesus Christ as literally the Son of God, as clear as it gets, with as much proof as possible from the life and the teachings of Jesus Christ. So that's John. And whenever we read the Gospel of John, dear people, it is fascinating. It is fascinating. It does not contradict the previous, well, or the other Gospels. It does not contradict the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It doesn't. None, not whatsoever. It just has a little bit different tone um, than than the other three Gospels. So let's jump into, and I do want to say hi to everybody who's joining the stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. And right now, from for the next hour, we will have a presentation only live stream. I will not be focusing much on the comments, and our studio for a conversation is closed. But in about an hour and a half at 8:30, we will actually have an open conversation live stream. It's going to be a different live stream, but it's going to be an open conversation live stream. So please hang around. Please stick with me here as we unpack today the Gospel of John, chapter 2. We will go verse by verse, trying to figure out how John is trying to portray Jesus Christ to everybody who's going to be reading his book. So before we start, let's jump into the prayer, and let's just ask God to guide this whole conversation, because only God can reveal to each one of us Jesus Christ. Only God can. Only God can. And we must be willing to receive and accept that revelation. Almighty God, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this day, and thank you so much for this another opportunity to do the live stream. I really appreciate it, Lord. And thank you so much for every single thing that, you have revealed to me from the Gospel of John, chapter 2. That chapter is kind of hard. It's kind of hard, but thank you so much, Lord, that in the process of digging in that chapter, there's quite a bit of points that we will be able to look over and understand who Jesus Christ really is. Please, I pray this. Please, 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 Father, open up the hearts and minds of people that will be listening. Open up my heart and my mind as well, so that all of us together could get to know your Son more closer. Thank you so much for this another opportunity, and help me to speak that what is on your heart. That's it. Only that what is on your heart. And to you alone be all praise and glory for every single thing that will be happening here today. Blessed be your name, our holy, righteous God. Amen. Well, let's just start. Let's jump into John chapter 2. Okay? Let's see here. We're in John chapter 19, but let's jump into John chapter 2. And we will go verse by verse. Well, I'll read a section so that we would see and understand context, and then we're going to break that section up and try to figure out what did Jesus or what is John trying to tell us. Okay, let's start. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now, both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no more wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now there were set there 6 water pots of stone, according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. Jesus said to them, "Fill the water pots with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." And they took it. When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, he did not know where it came from. But the servants who had drawn the water knew. The master of the feast called the bridegroom, and he said to him, "Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when the guests have well drunk, then the inferior. You have kept the good wine until now." This beginning of signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum, he and his mother, his brothers, and his disciples, and they did not stay there many days. Okay, let's break down this section. This is a very interesting section, and two things that are fascinating to me is we find this miracle where Jesus is turning water into wine. We find it only in the Gospel of John, and John says that this is the beginning of signs. So this water into wine is literally the very first miracle that Jesus has done. Let's go over it real quick now. Okay, so on the third day, there was a wedding. Oh, by the way, before we jump into it, I was thinking about this, and if somebody has an answer, because I couldn't figure out, I'm just wondering of the possibilities that are out there. So I couldn't figure out on possible answer, but if you know, it'd be nice if you could share with me. Now, turning water into wine. I wonder why. I mean, I understand that they were at a wedding. I understand that part, okay? I understand that they were at the wedding and so on and so forth. But I just wonder why. Like, water into wine. Why not like orange juice? Why not just apple juice or maybe something else? A big jar of coffee. Why not that? Why specifically wine? And that had to be his very first miracle too. Like, why? But anyways, that's beside the point. So on the third day, there was wedding in Cana of Galilee. And the mother of Jesus was there. This is this is going to be I have some things that are highlighted. So the mother of Jesus was there. This is important. It's actually important that there was a wedding in Cana and the mother of Jesus was there. Now, both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no more wine." At the wedding, think about this. At the wedding, they ran out of wine. This issue that they ran out of wine was actually concerning enough for Jesus's mother that she approached him and asked for help. I mean, think about this. Jesus is a guest at the wedding. He's not a servant. He's not an employee. He's not a master of the feast, too. He's just a guest. He was invited to enjoy the wedding, I guess, to celebrate with the couple. He was invited specifically for that reason only. That's it. And all of a sudden, wine is out. And the mother of Jesus specifically comes to him. The one who's just a guest. The one who, logically speaking, what can he do regarding wine running out? What can he do? I mean, if I were to think about this from a human-only standpoint of view, like I would not go to a guest. I would probably, if I would be the person who would be at the wedding feast and something happened that would be concerning me, like maybe I know the bride, I know the groom, or I know the family, and something happens at the wedding where it's gonna somewhat make things or inconvenience for the guest, maybe slightly embarrassing for the couple. So what I would do if I would be, let's say, a master of the feast, or maybe one of the people on top, right? What I would do is I would approach a servant. I would come to a servant and say, hey, we ran out of wine. I need you to run as fast as possible to the nearest store and buy a lot of wine. We need a lot of wine as soon as you possibly can. Go now, run. Right now, go. Go now, run. That's what I would do. That's what anyone would do. But the mother of Jesus specifically comes to Jesus, a guest at the wedding. Why does she specifically come to him? Well, the mother of Jesus knew exactly who he is. She did not go to anyone else but to him. Why? Because she was actually seeking a divine miracle. A divine miracle. So this option of sending a servant to the store was probably out of the picture. Was probably out of the picture. And it wouldn't work out if she would. And any other options that they probably thought of to get the wine back were also out of the picture. They just wouldn't work as well. So the only option that the mother of Jesus actually has is to come to a Jesus who's a guest and set up a miracle to happen. Set up a miracle to happen. How? How? Well, let's continue. So she told to Jesus, they have no more wine. Okay? That's what the mother of Jesus has told him. Look at Jesus' response back. Jesus said to her, woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. See? Like, Jesus is just sitting there as a guest. And the mother of Jesus is approaching him and asking him for a miracle. They ran out of wine. Like, okay, I'm just a guest. Why are you coming to me? Why? Just think about it. Just imagine this story. Like, Jesus is sitting there and the mother of Jesus is coming to him and saying, they ran out of wine. Okay. Okay, I'm just a guest. What does your concern have to do with me? But notice one thing, that Jesus did not stop there. What does your concern have to do with me? He didn't stop there. This is one of the things that I like about Jesus Christ. He always gives a hint of who he is and of, yes, miracle that he can pull. He always gives a hint. Even though he may answer in a, well, in a negative tone. I'm not saying he didn't say, he said no to her request, but it's more on a negative tone if you were to look through it. What does your concern have to do with me? Like, okay, well, why are you asking me? And look at the second one. My hour has not yet come. So both of the statements, the number, what does your concern have to do with me? And my hour has not yet come. It's more from a negative tone. Negative tone does not mean no. Just hear me out. Negative tone does not mean no. No, it does not mean that. If Jesus is using a negative tone in the Bible, we have to understand his character, his behavior. What is he doing? Why is he using a negative tone? Why? Well, each time you were to look through the Bible, why he is using a negative tone, you will come across one very interesting point. Every single time he's using he's giving a negative tone answer to the people that are asking him for a miracle. It's because he's testing them. Because he is testing their faith. Is their faith real or is their faith false? He's testing them. Same thing here with his mom. What does your concern have to do with me? What does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. We have two negative tone small sentences. Look, I'll show you somewhere else. I'll show you something else where Jesus is actually using the same thing, the negative tone. Okay, so let's go to Matthew. Matthew 15, verse 21 through 28. This is a very similar story with a negative tone, but see how Jesus has responded back. Then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came to the region and cried out to him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely demon possessed. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and urged him, saying, Send her away, for she cries out after us. But he answered and said, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then she came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. Do you see how this mother's faith is literally persistent? It's persistent. It's so persistent that the disciples got sick and tired of her and are turning to Jesus Christ and saying, Jesus, you see what's going on? This woman is annoying us. Can we get rid of her so that we would have some peace and quiet, please? Please? And then when the disciples of Jesus, they brought this to his attention because they were irritated already. That's when Jesus spoke up. But until then, he would not even speak up. He would be quiet every single time she would be following him, begging him for a miracle to happen. He would just be quiet, ignoring her. But because of his disciples, he speaks up. But he answered and said, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of Israel. Then she came and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. And she said, Yes, Lord. Yet even the little dogs eat the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said to her, O woman, great is your faith. Let it be to you as you desire. And her daughter was healed from that very hour. So notice here some very, very interesting points. So Jesus was ignoring her. She was persistent. And then when she came to Jesus, worshiped him, and said, Lord, help me. Look at what he answered. It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. So Jesus answers with a negative tone. Notice again, he didn't say no. He did not say no. I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. One negative tone, one negative answer. There's no no here. It is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. There's no no here too. But there's another second negative tone answer. But this woman, she just would not give up. Look at her response. Yes, Lord, yet even the little dogs eat the crumbs which fall on from their master's table. She pops a logical response back to Jesus. Logical response back to Jesus. And then Jesus answered and said to her, O woman, look, great is your faith. Great is your faith. Two negative responses from this woman. Two negative answers to this woman. 2 times. She would not give up. She would keep on pressing in because she knew who he is. She knew, and she knew that he is her only miracle, period. So even though she's getting a negative tone answers back, she is pressing in to such degree that she pops a statement to Jesus, and Jesus responds back with, "Oh woman, great is your faith." Do you see how persistent faith moves Jesus to action? Let's go back to John chapter 2. Look, this is the same thing. You will see it right here. Persistent faith as well. His mother said to the servants. So after hearing this response, woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. So after hearing this response, Jesus' mama did not peep a word anymore to Jesus at all. She didn't tell him anything. What she does is she turns to the servants and she now speaks to the servants. Whatever he says to you, do it. Think about it. Jesus' mama is leaving Jesus with no option but to execute a miracle. No options. Jesus pops 2 negative tones. She can care less about his negative tones. She can care less. She turns to the servants and commands the servants, whatever Jesus is going to say, you must obey. Right? Doesn't matter how crazy it might be. Anything and everything he says, obey. That's what she does. And then she walks off. Imagine the place that she puts Jesus in. Now those servants are looking at Jesus, waiting for instructions. Think about it. The servants are looking at Jesus, waiting for instructions. Well, Jesus has no option but to act. He has no option but to act. His mama literally set him up. set him up to force him to do a miracle. He has no option but to act right now. There's servants that are looking at him. What is he going to do? Is he going to say, no, I cannot do anything? Well, he's going to embarrass his mama. He cannot embarrass his mama. He has no choice but to do exactly what his mama has asked him to do. Even though he said, what does your concern have to do with me? Or, my time has not yet come. It's very interesting that Jesus' mama does not care if his time has come or not. She doesn't care. In a way, she is the one who pushed Jesus into miraculous ministry. She's the one who has done it. She left him with no options whatsoever. Think about how great Jesus' mother faith is, how great it is. We just read about the Gentile woman who was persistent and asking Jesus to heal her kid. But Jesus' mama is even more persistent, literally even more persistent. This is what I like about this. I mean, I have never thought about this before until I had to do the in-depth study of the chapter, and I've seen how literally she, in a way, locks Jesus to a miracle only. He doesn't have any other options. So look what he says. Now there were 6 water pots of stone, according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. It looks like Jesus saw those water stones and he knew exactly what to do. And look how Jesus is executing the miracle. Look, this is very, very important. Very important. Okay. And Jesus then goes to the store and he grabs a lot of grapes and he then jumps on the grapes, jump, squishes the grapes. He puts all the grapes into the water pot and then he mixes it up. He puts some yeast in it and it bubbles into a wine. Hey, now we got a lot of wine. Yes. No, that's not what happened. Look exactly what happened. Jesus, think about this. Jesus did no actions whatsoever. He did no actions. He did not do anything to help wine to appear in those water pots. He didn't do anything action based. All he did is Jesus said to them, to the servants, fill the water pots with water. I mean, servants do not know what Jesus is about to do. They have no clue, but, Jesus' mama said, listen to everything that he's going to say, so they must do whatever he's going to say. So, guess what they have done? They filled the water pots with water, and they filled them up to the brim. And he said, again, Jesus said, draw some out and take it to the matter of the feast. Do you see how Jesus is executing this miracle? All he's doing is speaking. He's not mixing anything. He's not bringing anything. He's not pouring anything. All he's doing is speaking. Do you see how powerful Jesus' speech is? And another interesting fact is Jesus is not praying here. He didn't pray. Oh Lord, please, we need a miracle to happen. Please, help us to figure out how to get wine. Or turn this water into wine. Jesus didn't pray. He didn't invoke the name of the Lord whatsoever. All Jesus did is he said exactly what to do, number one. Number two, what Jesus had said is a little bit crazy too. A little crazy. But again, that's where faith is required. And faith actually activates Jesus creating a miracle. Faith. So what Jesus said is a little crazy. Look, just think about it. If you were to be in a place of a servant, and you hear this from Jesus, fill up the water pots with water to the brim. So okay, no problem, makes sense. So if I'm a servant, I get water and I start to fill it up, fill it up, fill it up. Now it's to the brim. Nice. Uh, it's done. Next. Okay, next. The next is draw some out and take it to the master of the feast. I mean, me as a servant would be like, okay, I have to obey you. I was told to obey you. So, okay, I'll do exactly what you're telling me to do. But I know that I just poured a lot of water into those pots, and now you're telling me to draw some out and take it to the master of the feast. Okay. I mean, I guess I'll be bringing water to the master of the feast, but I was told to do it. So guess what I'll do? I'll just be obedient and do exactly what I have been told. That's it. So, and they took it, and when the master of the feast has tasted it, the water that was made wine, he did not know where it came from. But the servants who had drawn the water knew. So see, I think the servants were fascinated by the reaction that came from the master of the feast. He drank that cup a little bit, the cup that's supposed to have water in it. He drank it and he goes like, "Ooh, whoa, 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 whoa! I'm shocked. What did I just drink? This is awesome!" Look what he has done next. And he said, so the master of the feast called the bridegroom and he said to him, "Every man at the beginning sets out good wine. And when the guests well drunk, then the inferior. You have kept good wine until now." You have kept good wine until now. So Jesus made some good wine, some high quality wine. High quality, awesome wine. So good that the master of the feast was surprised. Surprised in a positive way. Why? Because there was no wine, and all of a sudden, a high quality wine came. And in a way, he's saying, I guess let's party. I mean, party in a good way, though. Not in a sinful way, in a good way. Look, this is the beginning of signs Jesus did in the Galilee. Yeah. In a Cana of Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. And his disciples believed in him. As we can see in verse 5, this one right here. His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." So as we can see in verse 5, Jesus' mother leaves him with no option but to execute the miracle. When Jesus saw her faith and how this might be a little mean to say, but it's kind of true in a way, how she trapped him. She literally trapped Jesus Christ in getting the miracle done, whether he wants it or not. Literally, she trapped him. And how she trapped him, he had to act. Great faith, guys. Great faith literally traps Jesus Christ into action. Great faith is something that moves him. Stubborn, persistent, great faith. And again, we have looked over the Matthew chapter 15. verse 21 through 28, how another example of persistent faith that does not give up. And in the end, even after two negative responses from Jesus, that great faith gets a miracle. Matthew chapter 15, verse 21 through 28. Okay, let's continue with this. Okay, so now the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. He found in a temple those who sold oxen and sheep and doves and money changers doing business. This is going to be very interesting, by the way. So few points here. So Jesus goes up to Jerusalem. That's point number one from this passage that we need to keep in our mind. The second point from this passage is he goes to the temple. Okay, he goes to the temple. That's the second. It's very important. You'll see why soon. And when he was at the temple, he looked around and he goes like, "This is a place of worship, and there's business at the place of worship. Business is business. Worship is worship. We cannot mix two things together. Business is business. Worship is worship." And look what happens next. When he had made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and oxen, and poured out money changers and overturned the tables. We have to imagine the story. We have to imagine this passage. In order to understand, we have to imagine. Again, imagine Jesus or you. Let's say you, so that it would be more understandable. The point would be a lot more easier to understand. You, right? You come to a Jerusalem, a huge city. And then in Jerusalem, you specifically go to a place of worship, temple, magnificent, massive temple. There is a lot of people there, different religious leaders as well. In today's day, pastors, deacons, blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot of different religious leaders as well. And when you arrive to the temple, you see that there's no worship going on at the temple at all. But instead, you see that there's business. It's like a marketplace. Instead of a place of worship, it literally looks like a marketplace. So here's the question. What would you do? What would you do? Would you do what Jesus has done? Would you? Would you be bold enough? Think about it. You're in a temple. A lot of people are all around you. And you see something that is driving you nuts. Literally irritating you from the bottom of your core. What would you do? Would you do the same thing that Jesus has done? Or would you just turn around and go home? What would you do? Look what Jesus has done. When he made a whip of cords. Oh, wow. Would you make a whip of cords? Would you? And then after Jesus made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple. Would you make a whip of cords and then go so crazy with that whip of cords that you will be literally driving people out of the temple? Would you be bold enough to do this? I mean, think about it. You can get arrested, right? You can get beaten down. People can jump you. There can be a lot of negative consequences if anyone was to do this, what he's doing. You can get fined. You can go to jail. I mean, bad things can happen if you're doing this right here. and with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out changers. Like, think about it. He comes to the sheep, he comes to the oxen, and he's driving them out of the temple. He's opening up all the cages, and he's literally scaring the sheep and the oxen so they could run outside of the courtyard, outside of the temple, out in the streets. He's literally driving people and animals outside in the streets. Get out. And then he comes to the people that are exchanging money. There's a lot of coins on the table. Oh, he doesn't care. He takes the table and just throws it up. Would you do the same thing as he has done? Would you? Would you have enough boldness and courage to do such things? Think about this. This is dangerous what he's doing. And he said to those who sold doves, I mean, in the middle of this chaos that he's literally unleashing over there at the temple, look at the self-control that Jesus has. Self-control. I'm just fascinated who Jesus is. Look at the self-control that he has. So he comes to the people that are selling oxen and sheep. He opens up the cage and he's driving them all out of the temple. Basically, what he's doing is, guys, if you want your sheep back, go chase them. Get out of here. Go chase your sheep. Then he comes to the people with coins and he flips the table upside down. Coins went flying all over the place. No more business for those people too. Why? Because they need to bend down and collect all their coins. So business is done for those people as well, because they need to collect all the coins. But then Jesus, look at the self-control that he has. Then he comes to the people that are selling doves. And guess what? He didn't open up the cage. He did not open up the cage. No, he didn't overturn the tables. He didn't do any of those things to the people that are selling doves. Instead, he said, take these things away, like literally in a very, very loud voice. Why? Look at the exclamation mark. Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of merchandise. And guess what? Then his disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house has eaten me up. Zeal for your house. Look at the zeal. Look at the passion that's running through Jesus Christ for the house of God. He can care less if he's going to get arrested. He can care less what is going to happen with him. He needs to clear out that mess. He cannot stand what evil people have done to the house of God, to the place of worship. He cannot stand this. So he needs to clean everything up. And he has taken matter into his own hands to do it. And while the matter was in his own hands to do it, he exercised self-control. Why did he needed to exercise self-control? Because Jesus was not after hurting people's livelihoods. He was not after that. He let the sheep and the oxen go. Why? Because people can't catch them. They can catch them. He flipped money changers tables. Why? Because people can collect the coins back again. All he's doing is he's disturbing the business. He's disturbing the marketplace. And then he comes to the people who selling doves. He did not open up the cage. Why? Because doves would fly away and people would not be able to catch them. Jesus was not after ruining or damaging, destroying people's livelihood. No, he was only after disturbing the marketplace activity. And then when people stop their business at the temple, everything has calmed down. So again, in the middle of this zeal, he's exercising some great self-control. Jesus is awesome, by the way. He's awesome. And again, his disciples remembered that it was written, zeal for your house has eaten me up. See? Jesus is executing what has been written about him. And we also find some of the kings that has done similar thing what Jesus has done. Like there's where is it at? Let me just verse 17, this right here. So Jesus fulfills the prophet's description of Messiah's character and behavior. It takes extreme boldness to do what he has done. And we also find that there were kings that did similar things to what Jesus has done. Like King Josiah. He went on a rampage, destroying all the false idols and statues and everything that was in the way of worshiping God. He literally went on a rampage, destroying everything. So Josiah's zeal for God's kingdom was extremely great. But I decided to compare Josiah to Jesus and actually see whose zeal is greater, Josiah's or Jesus's. Guess what? Josiah was a king ordained by man and by God and men. Was accepted by God and men. Now Jesus was only ordained by God. People would not accept him. King has an authority to do whatever he wants. Josiah, he had natural authority. And all he had to do is exercise that authority. That's it. Not much boldness is needed. Not much boldness at all is needed for a king to exercise his authority. But Jesus did not have the same authority as Josiah did. He didn't. Jesus actually pulls a stunt, a dangerous stunt here by cleaning out the temple. Dangerous stunt. So Jesus' level of zeal was by far higher than anyone else in the scriptures. Anyone else in the scriptures. By far higher. Everybody else who had cleaned up the temple of God, it's usually a king. It's usually a king. There was no such a thing. I don't remember a prophet coming to a temple of God and doing what Jesus has done. I don't remember that. Let's continue. So Jesus answered. So Jews answered and said to him, "What sign do you show us since you do these things?" So do you see how Jews, once they saw what Jesus has done, his zeal, his passion, and his boldness and his confidence, they did not call the cops. They didn't. They didn't call anyone to arrest him. They were so fascinated what they're witnessing that they fully understood that this guy is not crazy. He's probably a prophet of a sort. He's not crazy. He's not a maniac. He's probably a prophet of a sort. Because now, look, what sign do you show us since you do these things? What sign? Obviously, no sign. No sign. Why? Because they were unbelievers. Look, this is what Jesus has answered back. Jesus answered and said to them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Then Jews said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you will raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking of the temple of his body. Therefore, when he had risen from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this to them, and they believed the scriptures and the word which Jesus said. "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Let me show you one more passage, man. I did not write this passage in my notes when I was doing the notes, but let me just um, let's go to Matthew. This right here, what Jesus said, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. That is the sign. That is the only sign that the Jews are going to get. The unbelieving Jews. That is the only sign that they're going to get. The only sign. Jesus actually said the same thing as well a little later on. Look, in Matthew 12, 39. 39. So there's a story how there's a story, and then some scribes and Pharisees ask for a sign. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees answered, saying, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. Very similar concept as we find in John. Jews come and say, if you do these things, then show us a sign to prove you have authority to do this. This is a very similar thing. When an unbelieving person comes to Jesus and dares Jesus to prove his authority, the only answer that that person is going to get from Jesus, the only answer is an evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and no sign will be given to it except the sign of prophet Jonah. The only sign that an unbelieving person will get is a sign of times. But again, sign of times, everybody's going to get that sign. Everybody's going to get that sign. So that is the only sign that the unbelieving people will get, is the sign of time. They will not receive any personal sign or miracle from Jesus Christ at all, whatsoever. Whatsoever. Why? Because their faith is dead. All they do is they come to bicker and challenge Jesus Christ. That's it. But notice how Jesus's mama, when she came to Jesus Christ, she did not bicker with him. She did not fight with him. She did not show any sign of unbelief. But instead, she had set up such an event that Jesus had no choice but to execute a miracle, to cause a sign to happen. Do you see the difference between people with great faith and people with no faith? People with great faith, Jesus Christ helps them by doing miraculous signs and wonders in their lives. But people with no faith, the ones that just fight and bicker with Jesus Christ, they're not going to get anything from Jesus. Nothing whatsoever. Nothing. So I hope you and I understand this point, and we will be amongst the people that will not be bickering with Jesus Christ, but we will be submitting to him, worshiping him. Why? Our submission, our worship, our faith causes miracle to happen. That's how great it is. Let's continue. So again, you want a sign, or you want a miracle from Jesus Christ? Don't test him. Don't test him. But with a stubborn faith, faith that is alive, stubborn faith. Just continue to press and ask Jesus Christ for help. If you hear a negative tone answers back, such as it's not the time, such as well, I guess the time has not changed, or regarding the concern, or anything that's negative from a negative standpoint of view, just remember, negative tone answer is not a no. If you hear a negative tone answer from Jesus Christ, keep on persisting. Keep on believing. Why? Because your great faith will cause a negative answer to turn into a miracle. So this is one of the lessons from John chapter 2, is regarding great faith. And his mama literally showed massively great faith. Okay, next. Now, when he was in Jerusalem at Passover, during the feast, many believed in his name. And when they saw the signs, which he did, but Jesus did not commit himself to them, because he knew all men and had no need that anyone should testify of men, for he knew what was in men. As always, among the entire crowd of people, there will be those that refuse to believe, and they're not getting any miracles from Jesus at all. And those that focus their belief on Jesus. But people in general are very unstable and wavy. One day this, the next day opposite of this. Because Jesus knew what was in people, he did not depend on them in any way to execute his Father's salvation plan. He didn't depend on people. He was just doing exactly what his Father is leading him to do. That's it. That is it. Simple. And the reason why Jesus did not commit himself to the people or trust the people, because again, of who we are. We lie, we flip-flop, we change our minds, we wake up on the wrong side of the bed and then cause issues and problems. That's who we are. We're not stable at all whatsoever. But Jesus is actually the only one who is as stable as it gets. So final conclusion of John chapter 2. Believing in Jesus, in who he is the very first step in receiving a personal miracle from Jesus Christ. Stubborn and wise faith that traps Jesus, is the second step. Believing is the first step. But persistence and wisdom is the second step. Why do we need the second step? Because oftentimes Jesus will test our faith. If we are serious, if we are seriously asking or not, if we seriously believe or not, he will test our faith. Please remember, if Jesus responds with a negative statement, not a direct no, but just a negative statement back, then Jesus is testing person's faith. I want to encourage you, do not get discouraged, and instead ask God for wisdom on what faith action to take in order to display great faith to Jesus. So if you hear a negative statement, like it's not the time yet or whatever, fine, do not get discouraged. Keep on pressing for a miracle. Keep on pressing. Keep on pressing. How? Just pray to God and say, Lord, faith without action is dead. What do you want me to do? It might be crazy, but what do you want me to do? What action, what faith action do you want me to take? And guess what? You will know exactly what to do. And once you get an answer and you do it, Jesus will look at your faith and say, great is your faith. Let it be to you exactly as you're asking. And then that's basically about the faith, about the wine aspect. But then later on in the chapter, we see Jesus has Messiah level zeal. Once he entered the temple, he saw what's going on, and we see that he has literally a Messiah level zeal. Nobody else in the past had that high level zeal as Jesus does. Jesus' zeal is a Messiah level zeal. So Jesus has Messiah level zeal for the kingdom of God and God's ways. Messiah level zeal has promoted Jesus to restore order within God's kingdom. And again, we can look into the story of Josiah that we find in 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 4 through 25. Just read, 21 verses over there, and you will see what Josiah has done. Josiah has showed great level zeal as well. But the difference between Josiah and Jesus is this. Josiah is God and human authorized king. Jesus is only God authorized king. Human beings did not recognize him whatsoever. Because of this, Jesus' zeal level has to be much more greater than of that of Josiah. And whenever people even saw Messiah level zeal within Jesus Christ, people still refuse to believe in Jesus. And those that refuse to believe in Jesus, the only miracle sign they will ever get is a sign of times. A sign of times is basically a sign for everybody, like Jesus coming to earth, being born of a virgin, then being crucified, on the third day rising from the dead. That's a sign of times. Sign of times. When a perfect time, when the perfect time has come forth, that's when God has executed a miracle. So any people that refuse to believe in Jesus, the only sign that they will have from God is a sign of times. When things are ready, God will be executing a miracle to happen. But they will never receive any personal miracles from Jesus Christ. And just remember, I'm pretty sure you know this. I'm pretty sure you know this. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows this, as we read in the end of John chapter 2. Very simple, straightforward. People are super unstable. Yeah, it's hard to trust people. It's hard to depend on people. Why? Because if, let's say, I depend on a family member or even a friend or whomever, that person wakes up on the wrong side of the bed, and guess what happens? Things start to fall apart. People are very unstable. But Jesus Christ is the only one who brings stability in our lives. The only one who brings true stability. So that's why we need to trust him. And well, this is John chapter 2. John chapter 2. It's good to find out. It's good to get to know who Jesus Christ more and more and more. It's very good. It's very good. And I hope that this has been encouraging to you. And I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you and point you to one thing. Believe in Jesus for who he is. And have living great faith. That will result in miraculous signs and wonders directly from Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you so much for just hearing me out, presenting John chapter 2. And I hope from the bottom of my heart that this has been beneficial to you. And in about 20 minutes, um, there's going to be, I actually pasted right here, there's going to be a link. There's a link in the comment section. You're welcome to click on that link. It will take you to another live stream, and at that another live stream we will be having an open conversation where I will be answering questions, and our studio will be open. People would be able to come to our studio, and then I'll bring him on stage so we could have a live conversation and challenge each other to find out what is the truth. So until then, thank you again for hanging out with me. And until then, God bless everybody.